Sunlight filters into a grand bedroom where a small, blonde baby sleeps peacefully in her ornate crib. The young girl stirs, beginning to wake as the morning light fills the room. Peering into the mirror, the blue-eyed child stares back at her reflection with a look of quiet realization. Panic seizes the small girl as she realizes with a start that she has regressed yet again. A mysterious hooded figure studies an ancient prophecy beneath a brilliant, radiant, stained glass window in a holy temple. Feathers drift through the air as the church and imperial family kneel, beginning their search for a promised savior. Members of the clergy scour the city streets, examining every child in hopes of finding the chosen one. The search intensifies as high-ranking officials personally inspect children within the walls of noble estates and orphanages. A silver-haired observer watches over a quiet village where children play, continuing the hunt for the divine child. Two robed men react with sudden shock as they finally encounter the specific child they believe to be destined. Despite her lack of divine power, the blonde girl is proclaimed the child of destiny, born on February 29th. Following her official adoption by the imperial family, a nobleman leads the confused little girl through the palace grounds. Under the watchful eyes of the temple, the girl spends her early years immersed in rigorous, demanding academic studies. Standing within a glowing magic circle, the girl sadly admits that her divine powers have shown no signs of awakening. Disappointment turns to despair as the imperial family and the temple begin to lose all faith in their supposed savior. A new girl with long, dark hair arrives at the palace gates, signaling a shift in the empire's hopes. Branded a deceiver and condemned by her people, the woman is ultimately sacrificed in a desperate attempt to seal an evil god. Time begins to unravel as the memories of her tragic past lives flash by in a whirlwind of ticking clocks. A sharp gasp sounds as the blonde girl wakes up in her crib, jolted back into her childhood body. Reaching her tiny hands toward the sky, she thanks God for another chance and vows to live well. Her resolve crumbles into tears as she realizes this is already her fourth life, and she has failed again. Sitting in her crib, the girl remains alert as she anticipates the imminent arrival of the formidable Empress Dowager. Three women, led by a silver-haired elder, enter the room with warm, cheerful smiles and bundles of papers. A portrait reveals Duke Amidi, the celebrated hero known throughout the empire for his righteous protection of the order. The scene shifts to describe Duke Valois, a man belonging to a prestigious family renowned for producing legendary scholars. Finally, the silhouette of Duke Doubled appears, representing the most powerful and wealthy villain in the entire empire. In a memory of her previous life, the blonde girl smiles at her father, who was rumored to be kind. Clutching a handmade card adorned with a red carnation, she prepares a heartfelt message of gratitude for her father. Her heart pounds with nervous excitement as she waits in the hallway to present the gift to her father. The Duke cold-heartedly walks past his daughter without a word, leaving her standing alone with her rejected gift. Despite the coldness between them, the orphan girl tells herself she is simply happy to finally have a father. A beautiful, dark-haired woman named Mina gushes with admiration as she speaks to the Duke in a flowery setting. The Duke gazes at Mina, seeing in her the perfect image of his long-lost, deceased first love. Mina triumphantly clings to the Duke's arm, boasting about her new status while the blonde girl watches from afar. Standing in the darkness, the blonde girl looks on in silence as she realizes she has been completely replaced. Framed for a crime she didn't commit, the girl cries out from behind iron bars,
desperately protesting her innocence.
A furious clergyman points a finger at her, screaming that her actions are worse than those of a beast.
In the cold blue light of the dungeon, her father looks down at her with nothing but pure contempt. With a chilling glare, her father demands that she become a sacrifice to prove her supposed repentance for her crimes. A final, heartless command echoes, telling her to die for the sake of Mina and the rest of the world. As she falls toward her first death, the Grim Reaper waits with a scythe to welcome her passing spirit.
She wakes with a start, gasping as she realizes she has undergone her very first regression back to infancy.
Now a baby again, the girl fumes with anger, vowing never to return to the cruel Amitié duchy.
She recalls her second life with Duke Valois, who maintained a fine exterior despite the darkness within his household.
Violence erupts in the shadows as her second father strikes her, enraged that she hasn't manifested a divine crest. A cold-eyed woman watches the abuse, dismissively mentioning the reaching out with a menacing hand. The Duke screams in rage, calling the terrified girl completely useless to him. Death claims her once again, leaving even the Grim Reaper baffled by how quickly she keeps returning to him. In her third life, the penniless child starves to death in the snow as the Reaper begs her to stop dying. Back in her crib for the fourth time, the girl realizes she must find a new path to survive. Clutching a paper, the determined blonde girl decides that her current plan is the only way forward. The silver-haired head maid and her assistants gape in collective shock at the little girl's actions.
Sunlight bathes the massive, ornate palace grounds as a new chapter of the girl's life begins.
Standing before the daunting presence of the Duke, the tiny blonde girl lets out a nervous gasp. A portrait introduces the Empire's greatest villain, the cold and striking silver-haired Duke Theodore Doublet. Sweating under the pressure, the brown-haired adjutant delivers the Empress Dowager's request to house the child. Theodore dismisses the Empress's sanity with a cold glare, ordering the little girl to be sent back. As Theodore turns his back, the girl watches him, knowing exactly who this formidable man is. Dazzled by the Duke, while the adjutant attempts to negotiate, the girl realizes that traditional threats will never work on Theodore. The Duke stands by the window as the girl acknowledges his immunity to the Papal State's pressure. Realizing the family's immense wealth, the blonde girl vows to stay and secure her own future. In a cheeky fantasy, the chibi girl imagines escaping this terrible empire with a suitcase full of money. Lounging by a tropical shore, the girl dreams of finding true asylum far away from her past. The girl plots with a mischievous grin, deciding that sticking close to Theodore is her ticket out. Using her knowledge of the future, the blonde girl shouts about an upcoming unannounced tax audit. The adjutant and Theodore look on in confusion, unable to decipher the baby's garbled, high-pitched warning. A single bubble confirms the girl's realization that her message was lost in translation. Frustrated by her bad pronunciation, the girl worries that her trump card has failed to impress the Duke. A firm hand suddenly reaches out and grabs the girl's blue dress, stopping her in her tracks. Theodore lifts the girl up, surprisingly having understood her specific warning about the December 7th audit. The girl presses a finger to her lips, playfully telling the Duke that the information is a secret. Despite the tension, the girl boldly offers her help to the stunned silver-haired man. A decorative frame displays the girl's ultimate goal. She wants the Duke to adopt her. Theodore questions his adjutant about the ledgers, while the man remains skeptical of a 4-year-old's words. The girl recalls how a past tax audit caused tremendous damage to the wealthy Doubled family.
Theodore's eyes narrow as he commands the adjutant to verify the child's bizarrely accurate information immediately.
Looking up at the Duke with bated breath, the girl wonders if her gamble has finally paid off. As he sits in his throne-like chair, Theodore insults her scent before ordering her a bath.
Panic seizes the girl as she imagines being packed into a box and returned to her original orphanage.
Terrified of being sent away, the blonde girl turns and sprints through the hallway with all her strength.
The brown-haired adjutant and the Duke stare in utter shock as the small child flees the room.
The girl's tiny feet move in a frantic blur as she tries to escape her perceived fate.
Reaching out desperately, the blonde girl throws herself at Theodore's leg and clings to him tightly. A dark aura surrounds the confused Duke as he stares down at the child attached to his boot.
Looking up with twinkling eyes, the girl gives Theodore a bright, adorable smile to win him over. Theodore is visibly rattled by the girl's persistence, while she silently vows never to face death again.
Haunted by her tragic previous lives, the girl decides that survival is more important than being loved.
Beaming with fake joy, the little girl hugs the Duke's leg and declares that she likes him.
The blonde child shouts her desperate plea to stay, throwing her pride away for a chance to live. Theodore holds the child firmly, his cold expression beginning to crack under her relentless tiny barrage.
In a chibi-style thought, the girl begs for her plan to work as she remains latched onto Theodore.
The sprawling, magnificent empire of Wigzantera is showcased as the grand stage for her new life.
A golden crest represents Nereid, the national religion that holds immense power over the people's lives. Beneath a divine seal, the imperial family sits in splendor, though their golden light masks deeper shadows. Two elegant noblewomen appear in a flashback, representing the complex web of high society's players. The powerful heads of the 5 ducal houses are revealed, standing as pillars of the empire's strength.
Bodies litter a dark, blood-soaked battlefield, highlighting the violent reality behind the Duke's fearsome reputation.
Silver-haired Theodore walks through the carnage, carrying a blood-stained sword that cements his status as a villain.
Theodore Doubled stares intensely, having become a singular, indomitable force within the Empire's power structure.
Theodore sits regally on his throne, maintaining his status as the current, cold-hearted host for the child. Dressed in white with small wings, the tiny blonde girl sits patiently, marked as a distinguished guest. Relieved to have avoided being kicked out, Chibi LeBlaine wipes her brow and notes the Duke's difficult nature. Recalling a past conversation about orichalcum, baby LeBlaine repeats the specific location information to the shock of the listeners.
A group of intimidating, dark-clothed men tower over the small child, their expressions initially grim and unreadable.
The atmosphere shifts as the men give enthusiastic thumbs up, much to the chibi girl's immense relief.
A vassal marvels at her cleverness, while LeBlaine internally delights in the temple's upcoming misfortune and her personal gain. Though she plays the part perfectly, the blonde child remains acutely aware that she is actually a fake savior.
LeBlaine notes the stark difference in her behavior when she is energetic versus when she is hungry and tired.
When a vassal reaches out toward her, LeBlaine reacts with a sharp, startled gasp of genuine fear and surprise.
Seeking safety, LeBlaine clings tightly to Theodore, leaving the rejected vassal looking dejected as he watches her.
The vassals comment on her shyness, noticing she only opens up while sitting safely on the Duke's lap.
Clutching Theodore's chest, LeBlanc reflects on her deep-seated fear of adult men stemming from past cycles of abuse.
Theodore coldly commands her to sit down, and the girl quickly obeys with a nervous, soft response.
The mustache-wearing vassal offers a pink candy as a reward for her valuable information, making her eyes light up.
Perched on the Duke's lap, the girl struggles with the stubborn wrapper, her tiny hands unable to open the treat.
Theodore suddenly snatches the candy away, leaving the blonde child staring in frozen, wide-eyed shock. As Theodore holds the treat just out of reach, Chibi LeBlanc's animal-eared silhouette expresses her utter disbelief and confusion. Tears well up in her eyes as she laments the Duke's cruelty for stealing candy from a small child. Catching her off guard, Theodore gently pops the treat into her mouth with a quick, surprising motion. Stunned by this sudden gesture, the blonde girl looks up at the Duke, while he stares back impassively. Shaking her head vigorously in a cute chibi style, the girl gives a firm refusal to the Duke's request. When Theodore questions her, LeBlanc looks up with sparkling eyes and declares that she is firmly on his side. A rare, genuine smile graces the silver-haired Duke's face, his blue eyes softening for a fleeting moment. Watching from a distance, the black-haired head maid wonders in disbelief if the cold Duke actually just smiled. Theodore hands the girl over, warning the maid about her noise, while LeBlanc doubts he could ever truly smile. 3 cheerful maids swarm the girl with offers of games, snacks, and horseback riding to win her favor. Surrounded by flowers and sweetness, LeBlanc beams with pure joy, realizing she has finally found a literal paradise. Now in a red dress, the girl happily eats cake and solves puzzles while a horse runs nearby. The girl runs excitedly toward Linda, who gushes with happiness at being greeted so warmly by the child. By whispering that Linda is her favorite, LeBlanc successfully conquers the heart of Dahlia. Offers a special candy, wondering why she feels so compelled to treat the blonde girl so uniquely. Repeating her secret favorite status trick, LeBlanc charms Dahlia while expressing fake concern for the other servants. The pink-haired Uni falls victim to the girl's charms as LeBlanc clings to her dress with wide, innocent eyes. With a conspiratorial whisper, the child tells Uni exactly what she wants to hear to ensure her loyalty. Uni is visibly moved to tears, and the girl celebrates another successful conquest within the household hierarchy. The 3 maids cheer in unison, completely captivated by the blonde girl's calculated and adorable displays of affection. Standing confidently, Chibi LeBlanc winks and blows a kiss, her plan to win over the staff working perfectly. A smirk crosses her face as she plots to avoid the rejection she faced in the Valois household. Leah, the black-haired head maid, gently approaches the girl to announce that it is time for her nap. A dark memory surfaces of others whispering about her low divine power, silenced by a harsh, echoing command. Leah fiercely defends the girl against gossiping servants, making LeBlanc look up at her with eyes full of admiration. With a kind smile and soft words, the black-haired woman wishes the child sweet dreams as she sleeps. Wrapped in soft white blankets, the blonde girl finally drifts into a peaceful, long-overdue slumber. Tossing and turning, LeBlanc wakes up in the middle of the night as her stomach lets out a loud growl. Perched in the dark, the hungry chibi girl sucks her thumb and realizes her body's needs are overwhelming her. Panicked, she realizes her extreme hunger is preventing her from maintaining the logical, adult mindset of her past lives. The maids find the girl in a heap later, and LeBlanc curses her failure to anticipate the baby body's limitations. Crying in the dim light of her room, LeBlanc wipes her nose as her hunger becomes unbearable. The blonde child pushes open the heavy, ornate doors and admits she is desperately hungry. Driven by an overwhelming urge to eat, LeBlaine ignores the dangers of wandering the castle at night. Her tiny feet patter across the carpeted hallway, unaware of a dark figure lurking in the shadows. With wide, watering eyes, the little girl sprints through the darkness in search of a late-night snack.
Memories of starving and being scolded for her appetite haunt LeBlaine as she recalls past lives of deprivation. Terrified and desperate, the girl devours food in her memory, reflecting her deep-seated trauma surrounding starvation. LeBlaine vividly remembers watching others eat while she suffered, vowing never to starve to death again. A mental barrier breaks as the blonde child finds herself unable to maintain her mature, adult perspective. Overwhelmed by her toddler body's instincts, a shivering LeBlaine admits her logical thinking has completely failed her. Driven by pure survival, she resolves to find something to eat at any cost. A montage shows the small girl tirelessly scouring every corner of the vast, silent palace for food. Prying into cabinets and crawling under furniture, the determined toddler continues her frantic search for a single morsel. As she searches, a firm hand reaches for a doorknob, signaling that someone has discovered her movement. Her eyes light up with joy as she finally spots a simple loaf of bread resting on a table. Tears of pure relief stream down her face as LeBlaine tightly embraces the bread like a precious treasure. Fearing discovery, the girl scurries through the hallway, intent on eating her prize in the safety of her room. A sudden, heavy thud echoes through the hall as the running child bumps into an immovable obstacle. Rubbing her head in shock, LeBlaine looks up to find a massive, terrifying shadow looming over her. Theodore stands tall in the dark, staring down at the trembling child with an icy, unreadable expression. Lightning flashes outside, framing the Duke as a terrifying figure, while LeBlaine realizes she has been caught red-handed. Paralyzed by fear, the blonde girl cowers on the floor as she faces the Duke's intimidating presence. Her mind races to a story about a man executed for stealing bread, fueling her growing panic. Haunted by a memory of a laughing woman, LeBlaine imagines herself meeting a grim end at the guillotine. Shivering uncontrollably, the little girl desperately tries to figure out how to survive this terrifying confrontation. Theodore's glowing blue eye narrows as he demands to know why she is wandering his castle. LeBlaine curls into a ball, certain that her life is over, as the Duke accuses her of being a spy. Theodore leans down, his voice cold as he questions her true identity and her role as a savior. Trembling and unable to speak clearly, the girl whimpers as she faces the silver-haired man's intense scrutiny. The Duke declares his hatred for liars and those who pretend to be on his side for personal gain. As Theodore contemplates how to handle her, LeBlaine bursts into tears and begs for his mercy. The silver-haired man looks on with a stern face, demanding she explain her crime. Sobbing on the floor, the blonde child finally confesses that she has stolen something from the castle. Theodore guesses if she took money or a holy relic, but LeBlaine shakes her head in frantic denial. When he asks if she stole military secrets, the terrified toddler continues to weep and refuse the accusation. Theodore's expression turns to one of utter disbelief as he realizes the absurdity of the situation. In a burst of tears, the chibi girl holds up her prize and wails that she only stole bread. An amusing mental image portrays the Duke's grumpy personality perfectly reflected in a loaf of bread. The three maids stand in a shameful line, looking guilty. LeBlaine sits in a large chair, finally eating her bread while Theodore and Leah observe her from nearby.
Leah explains with a heavy heart that the child missed dinner because she had fallen asleep too early. Theodore realizes the thief was simply a hungry child picking up bread that the servants had discarded. Overcome with guilt, the head maid and her staff lament their failure to properly care for LeBlain. Theodore reaches out toward the girl, perhaps intending to offer comfort after the misunderstanding. Recalling her previous fear, LeBlain flinches violently away from his hand with a look of genuine terror. A heavy silence falls over the room as the Duke and his staff stare in shock at the girl's reaction. Stunned and hurt, Theodore wonders why the child who once clung to him is now so afraid. LeBlain buries her face in Leah's dress, sobbing that she doesn't hate the Duke but was truly scared. She reflects on how safe she once felt, contrasted against the soul-crushing fear of thinking she would be killed. Leah gently holds the crying child, providing the warmth and comfort LeBlain so desperately needs. Her eyes sparkle with a sudden, intense focus as she prepares to confront the cold Duke. Leah decisively scoops up the blonde child, announcing her departure so the baby can finally finish her meal. The household staff stands paralyzed in absolute shock, stunned by the head maid's bold and protective defiance. Theodore's glowing blue eyes narrow into a sharp, intimidating glare that radiates an aura of overwhelming power. A collective, nervous gulp echoes through the room as the servants tremble under the Duke's heavy, silent pressure. Closing his eyes with a weary sigh, the Duke finally relents and gives his quiet, grudging approval. The maids move like a whirlwind, sprinting away with the child as a loud whir sounds in their wake. Gasping for breath, Leah collapses from the stress while the younger maids praise her for being the best. Looking tiny and vulnerable, LeBlain offers a tearful apology for her constant hunger and the trouble she causes. A gentle, comforting hand reaches out to touch the girl's shoulder, providing a silent gesture of much-needed warmth. Leah pulls the child into a tender embrace, firmly reminding her that babies are meant to eat and sleep. Overwhelmed by the head maid's kindness, the blonde girl's eyes fill with shimmering tears of pure, heartfelt relief. LeBlain's morning begins with cheerful greetings as she runs through the flower-filled castle halls in high spirits. The maids are completely smitten, unable to resist the sheer cuteness of the girl's bright and happy energy. While walking, LeBlain encounters a silver-haired youth who watches her with a distant and somewhat stern expression. The silver-haired youth bluntly tells her she should be studying, catching the little girl completely off guard. Panicked thoughts race through her mind as LeBlain worries that academic failure might lead to her exile. Surprising the youth with her sudden enthusiasm, a startled LeBlain shouts her agreement while carrots float nearby. The brown-haired adjutant encourages the stern Duke to try calling the child's name with a bit more affection. Crossing her arms with a stubborn pout, LeBlain assumes the cold Duke doesn't even know who she is. The adjutant leans down to interact with the girl, but she responds with a look of pure, wide-eyed confusion. Theodore pauses at the heavy double doors, casting a lingering glance back at the small, skeptical blonde child. Throwing the doors open with a dramatic flair, the Duke announces he has a special gift for her. A vibrant burst of flowers fills the scene, signaling a transition into a much more whimsical environment. Stunned into silence, LeBlain's eyes go wide with total disbelief at the spectacular sight before her. The small girl cautiously steps into the dark, empty-looking chamber, looking around with a deeply puzzled expression. A terrifying command to lock her up is met with the sharp bang, bang of a hammer. Shivering with suspicion, LeBlain questions the Duke's motives, while the adjutant notices her lingering, deep-seated fear. A close-up of Theodore's gaze reveals a flicker of hidden concern as he watches the girl's reaction.
Breaking the tense silence, the silver-haired Duke finally calls out her name, LeBlaine, with surprising, quiet gravity. Her breath hitches as she looks up, captivated by the sudden change in the Duke's icy demeanor. With a subtle movement, Theodore reveals a palm full of colorful, sparkling candies to tempt the hungry child.
Mesmerized by the sweets, LeBlaine stares at the prize as the prospect of candy overrides her survival instincts.
A mountain of gourmet cookies and pastries is revealed, looking like a literal dream come true for the toddler. The Duke and his adjutant stand beside a massive hill of sweets, waiting for the girl's reaction.
A heart pops up as LeBlaine loses all her composure, her eyes sparkling with pure, unadulterated joy. Diving headfirst into the pile of treats, the chibi girl begins a frantic, happy feast while the men observe.
LeBlaine is in awe, realizing the Duke has actually created a fairy tale room just for her.
Showing her generous side, the child offers candy to the Duke, scolding him for trying to eat alone.
Theodore looks down at the girl, a humorous mental image of a squirrel appearing next to her bulging cheeks. A rare smirk plays on the Duke's lips as he teases the girl for looking like a foraging squirrel. Theodore playfully pinches her soft cheek, and LeBlaine chooses to let the insult slide for the sake of cookies.
Overflowing with happiness, the girl throws her arms up and gives the Duke a loud, heartfelt thank you.
A warm, genuine smile finally breaks through Theodore's cold exterior as he watches the child's radiant delight.
The maids are in a frenzy of excitement, presenting the girl with a variety of new, adorable dresses. Catching her red-handed, Leah enters strict mode as LeBlaine tries to hide the 7 candies she just ate. An elderly vassal gives the girl a cute elephant-shaped bag, earning him the title of the best grandpa. A devious smirk crosses LeBlaine's face as she realizes the bag is perfect for hiding her future escape supplies.
Gentle hands carefully tie a large blue bow on the girl's head, completing her new, charming outfit.
With a kind smile, Leah informs the girl that the Duke will officially introduce her to his vassals today. The maids adore LeBlaine in her new blue dress, predicting she'll be far too cute for the crowd. LeBlaine explains the sponsorship system, a traditional project that often hides the cultivation of specific, desired noble talents. A silhouette of a noble oversees a gifted graduate, highlighting how families mold sponsored youth into assets they desire. A gloved hand directs a floating student and books, representing the systematic support and education provided by noble sponsors. A formal youth walks among aristocrats, showcasing the membership in elite communities gained through the sponsorship systems network. Jewels and currency scatter across a dark background, illustrating the tremendous funds invested in these high-authority sponsorships. LeBlaine notes that provincial noble children now receive sponsorship from great families, as she looks on with keen curiosity. Leah and the maids invite LeBlaine to proceed for her official introduction to the Duke's powerful group of vassals. A small hand holds a larger one as LeBlaine wonders who the incredible sponsored child of Doubled could be. Leah leads LeBlaine toward a group of men praising the brilliant young Master Jude as they walk the carpet. 2 vassals hope to make a good impression as the highly anticipated social gathering in the castle finally begins. LeBlaine makes a grand flower-framed entrance, offering a bright and charming greeting to the assembled group of noble guests. The vassals are instantly smitten, blushing and swooning over LeBlaine's polite, wide-eyed, and absolutely adorable social greeting. LeBlaine's eyes widen in genuine shock as she recognizes the blonde boy, Jude, standing among the gathered adults. A dark realization hits LeBlaine. She recognizes Jude as one of the worst, most despicable people from her past.
A memory surfaces of LeBlain's time as the daughter of Duke Valois, attending an academy while wearing red.
The memory reveals Jude was a professor who once cornered a young LeBlain in his office for a moment.
In the flashback, the professor praises LeBlain's good grades while looming over her in a deeply uncomfortable, threatening manner.
The memory turns darker as the professor makes disgusting advances, aiming to become Duke Valois' son-in-law through exploitation.
Jude, as the professor, cowardly points his finger and blames LeBlain for seducing him after his actions are exposed. The professor shamelessly argues that if LeBlain were truly upset, she would have reported his behavior from the start.
LeBlain recalls her paralyzing fear, standing before judgmental silhouettes that failed to understand her as a young victim.
Narrative text explains that a child victim often doesn't understand the dark intentions of an older professor at first.
The professor mocks her silence, cruelly claiming that her inability to scream meant she liked the situation in the end.
LeBlain reflects on her intense past fear, which frozen her body and left her completely unable to scream for help. Her past protest failed, resulting in only a minor pay cut for the unrepentant professor, while LeBlain suffered the consequences.
Ultimately, LeBlain was labeled promiscuous and expelled from the academy, carrying her suitcase away in the dark of night.
Back in the present, LeBlain clenches her small fist in a fiery rage, wanting to punch Jude's head.
Shaking with anger, LeBlain tries to calm herself, remembering that her future enemy is still just a child now.
Young Jude laughs arrogantly, boasting about his level of skill while basking in the vassal's praise for his talent. LeBlain watches with cold disdain as Jude acts out a scene of his father solving problems, mirroring his academy days. Jude and LeBlain sit side by side on a red sofa. He looks smugly content while she remains quiet and stoic.
Jude leans in with a sinister, red-eyed grin, asking if LeBlain saw his performance as she looks on bewildered. The blonde boy looks around suspiciously to ensure they are alone before dropping his polite act for the girl. Jude whispers a cruel insult into LeBlain's ear, calling her a fake who could never beat someone like him.
LeBlain is unimpressed, realizing Jude is being competitive with a 4-year-old and thinks she's a rival for sponsorship.
Choosing the high road, LeBlain decides to ignore the petty boy, assuming a calm, glowing, meditative state beside him. Jude continues his harassment, calling her a pitiful kid, as LeBlain stares at him with an intense, blue-eyed gaze.
The arrogant boy claims the Empress Dowager threw LeBlain away into the trash heap known as the Doubled family.
With a malicious sneer, Jude declares that LeBlain is trash too, triggering her painful memories of her past life.
LeBlain recalls her past self being silent and broken by such comments, but her current eyes burn with blue fire.
A sudden shift occurs as LeBlain's expression hardens into a look of absolute fury, her small fist clenching tightly.
Declaring herself different after living 4 lives, LeBlain delivers a powerful, bloody punch to Judah's face, shocking the room.
The toddler unleashes a brutal multi-punch combo on the boy, her face set in a deceptively sweet, closed-eye smile. Jude lies defeated in a mental boxing ring, while the maids cheer for LeBlain's decisive, one-sided victory over the bully. Jude's father, Baron Marco, stands up in a furious panic, shouting at LeBlain for her shocking physical attack. Jude feigns tears and plays the victim, accusing LeBlain of suddenly grabbing him, as his father looks worriedly.
A close-up of LeBlain's small hand pointing accusatorially signals that she is ready to defend her actions with flair.
LeBlain points directly at the trembling, sobbing boy, her blue eyes wide with a look of feigned, exaggerated shock.
The vassals look on in wide-eyed confusion as LeBlain prepares to turn the tables on the arrogant young Jude.
LeBlain points accusatorially at the boy, claiming he insulted the Doubled family as a pile of trash.
A profound, heavy silence fills the room as the vassals and maids react with wide-eyed shock.
LeBlain nervously wonders if her dramatic acting was too much as she waits for the Duke's reaction.
The Duke's aides burst into tears of adoration, calling the toddler a brave angel for her loyalty.
Sweat dropping, the skeptical blonde girl stares at the men's over-the-top emotional reaction with total disbelief.
Jude frantically denies everything, pointing his finger back at LeBlain and claiming she is the one lying.
Baron Marco panics, making desperate excuses and claiming his son was simply upset and made a mistake.
The father continues his frantic pleading, insisting Jude would never dare to refer to Doubled in such a way.
Theodore offers Jude a single, cold chance to tell the truth, his blue eyes reflecting absolute authority.
The Duke delivers a chilling threat, demanding the truth regardless of the threat of brutal physical punishment. A close-up of Theodore's glowing blue eye intimidates the boy into silence as the Duke offers one reprieve. Dark energy swirls as Theodore warns that failure to prove his words will result in widespread consequences.
Surrounded by a radiant, terrifying halo, the Duke demands a final answer about the truth of the situation. LeBlain watches with cold certainty, knowing the boy won't dare to lie while facing the Duke's wrath. Trembling and overwhelmed, Jude finally breaks and admits that LeBlain's accusation is indeed the truth. A sudden, firm grab sounding occurs as Baron Marco is seized by the Duke following his son's confession. Clutching Theodore's coat, the desperate Baron begs for his life while admitting he has committed a mortal sin. Theodore coldly orders the guards to take the man away, his blue eye gleaming with icy resolve. Guards drag the wailing Baron Marco away while his son Jude collapses onto the floor in tears. The scene transitions to the grand castle exterior, standing majestically against a vibrant orange sunset.
The Duke's aides shower LeBlain with praise, admiring her bravery for standing up to the older boy.
In a monochrome flashback, Jude mocks LeBlain while she feigns a pitiful, tragic fate to manipulate the room. The memory shows LeBlain acting like a helpless victim to ensure the vassals took her side against Jude. Jude's past insult toward Doubled is shown, highlighting why LeBlain chose to retaliate so fiercely. LeBlain reflects that while she can tolerate personal insults, she will never allow anyone to disrespect her family. Recalling her punch, the toddler feels a small sting of conscience, but remains satisfied with the outcome. LeBlain smiles cutely, glad that she managed to make such a positive impression on the Duke's inner circle. Looking up at Theodore, the girl wonders if she also successfully won over the icy Duke's favor. An aide reaches out to the child, laughing and commenting that she is quite cute. LeBlain makes a quick, sudden turn away sounding, hiding her face against Theodore to avoid the aide's touch. The men conclude that LeBlain is shy around everyone except the Duke, whom she clearly loves. One aide smiles warmly, noting that the child seems to reserve her affection solely for His Excellency. Jealousy fills the aides as they watch the Duke sit regally while the child clings only to him. Theodore claims the attention is a nuisance, yet a subtle, relaxed smile suggests he enjoys the child's loyalty. LeBlain admits that while she wanted to get along, the boy's pettiness made the whole situation a hassle. A bright text bubble declares that pleasure comes after hardship, signaling a happy shift in the narrative. Dressed in a new red coat, LeBlain cheers joyfully in the middle of a bustling town square. LeBlain walks with Leah, noting how much her life has changed for the better thanks to the vassals. Giggling with delight, the girl looks forward to shopping for all the things she needs. The scene shifts as LeBlain walks through the festive town, admiring the colorful decorations and stalls. LeBlaine stops in her tracks as she excitedly spots a toy shop during her outing.
She gazes through the window at a white rabbit doll, recalling its popularity from her first life.
A flashback shows a different young girl happily hugging the same white rabbit doll in the past.
The girl in the memory exclaims how much she likes the doll while smiling with pure joy.
LeBlaine's expression turns somber as she remembers being a child who once desperately wanted that toy. In the memory, a younger LeBlaine points at the rabbit doll and begs her former father to buy it.
Her previous father coldly tells her that the money should be used to save starving children instead.
Back in the present, Theodore looks down and asks the girl if she still wants the doll. LeBlaine looks down sadly as she quietly declines the doll, haunted by the painful memory of her past. Theodore notes that LeBlaine has gained compassion instead of a toy, looking at her with gentle approval.
Standing small among dark roses, LeBlaine silently confesses that she actually really wanted the rabbit doll. A flowery memory shows a brown-haired girl hugging a toy rabbit while joyfully thanking her father.
A man with brown hair and a decorated uniform smiles warmly in the sunlight during the flashback. With a quick, blurry, head-shaking sounding, Chibi LeBlaine dismisses the painful memory of her past desire. Leah smiles brightly and asks the girl if she would like to buy some toys while shopping.
LeBlaine realizes the maid mistakenly thinks she is staring at the shop because she wants playthings.
The toddler leads the way as she and the maids enter the colorful and bustling toy store.
Leah encourages the blonde child to pick out anything she likes among the shop's high-quality goods.
The other maids clasp their hands and coo, telling the girl to choose absolutely anything at all.
LeBlaine looks around the toy-filled room with wide eyes, searching for the perfect item.
The girl stops in her tracks, letting out a surprised gasp as she notices something unexpected. A red flower pin decorated with ribbon catches LeBlaine's eye, standing out among the mechanical toys.
LeBlaine stares intensely at the object, her blue eyes reflecting a deep and serious contemplation. The red carnation corsage is shown in detail, representing a traditional gift of gratitude for parents. A silhouette of a commoner couple holding hands appears, symbolizing a simple, loving family life.
Narrative text explains that on Gratitude Day, children give carnations to their parents to say thank you.
LeBlaine feels conflicted, weighing the importance of the flower against the fun toys she could have.
The wooden animals and toy trains seem to beg the girl to buy them and play. Looking sad and pouty, LeBlaine struggles with the emotional weight of her choice in this life. Determined not to waste a precious chance, LeBlaine points firmly at the carnation and makes her decision. Leah looks surprised and explains that the carnation corsage is a symbolic gift, not a toy.
LeBlaine explains she wants to give it as a present to someone she likes, citing orphanage traditions.
Leah's expression shifts to one of realization as she remembers that the holiday of Gratitude Day is near.
In a gray-toned memory, Theodore looks dismissive as he thinks such sentiments would only be a bother.
Chibi LeBlaine that being too annoying might make the Duke dislike her, causing a problem. Leah smiles and agrees to buy the corsage, leading the happy girl toward the shop's counter.
3 vassals walk together, and the one with the mustache proudly wears a red carnation on his chest.
The green-haired man smiles and notices the flower, starting a conversation about the upcoming holiday.
Laughing with pride, the mustached man confirms that his daughter gave him the flower as a gift.
He boastfully declares that raising children brings a unique happiness that nothing else can match. Theodore walks past the group, casting a cold, sidelong glance at the men's emotional display.
The vassals tease their leader, claiming that those who have never received a carnation are truly pitiful.
Theodore's expression becomes dangerously intense as he hears the men's unintentional insult regarding his own family.
The vassals freeze in a sudden, wide-eyed shock, sounding as they process the Duke's cold response.
Looking away with a stoic face, Theodore coldly admits that he has never once received a carnation gift. The men are struck by lightning-like realization, horrified that the Duke's 3 sons have never thanked him. The green-haired man nervously tries to laugh it off, saying boys are simply not as delicate as girls. Theodore's face darkens as he notes that he has never even heard a thank you from them. The vassals panic, realizing they have accidentally insulted the Duke by calling his life's circumstances pitiful. Leah walks with Leblain through the grand hallway, the girl proudly carrying her gift in a box. The 3 vassals watch with joyful excitement, their faces lighting up as they see the toddler. Tears of joy stream down the men's faces as they anticipate the Duke finally receiving a carnation. Theodore looks down at Leblain, who stops and looks back at him with a slightly nervous expression. The vassals' imagination shows them dancing and playing music in a festive celebration of the girl's gratitude. A subtle, relaxed smile appears on Theodore's face as he admits that carnations do bring happiness. The mustached man leans forward with a wide grin, encouraging Leblain to give the gift right now. Leblain looks down at the red flower she is holding, her expression sweet and thoughtful. Turning toward Leah, the girl offers the carnation to the maid with a heartwarming message of love. The 3 vassals are struck with a sudden, sweating shock sounding as they realize they have made a grave mistake. Theodore's icy blue eyes glow with a terrifying intensity as he processes the lack of gratitude from his own children. The men slump in despair as a thought bubble reveals their horror at Leblain giving the flower to a maid. While Leah joyfully spins the child, the brown-haired aide cries in fear behind the Duke's ominous, dark silhouette. Overwhelmed with emotion, Leah tearfully promises to treasure the carnation, her face glowing with genuine, heartwarming happiness. Hugging the maid, Leblain feels a sudden, ominous chill on the back of her head, as if being watched. With a sharp, sudden she sounding, Theodore looms behind them, his terrifying presence demanding the young girl's immediate attention. Chibi Leblain turns around with a startled expression, sweating profusely as she faces the Duke's cold and intense gaze. Theodore looks down with a somber, almost hurt expression, quietly asking the girl why he didn't receive a flower. Smiling brightly, Leblain explains she didn't buy him one because she assumed he would find the gesture annoying. Darkness radiates from the frozen, jealous Duke as the maid and child continue their happy celebration, completely to him. A shooting star crosses the night sky as a decree abolishing Gratitude Day leaves the entire territory in absolute shock. Dressed in a bear ear headband, Leblain sprawls comfortably on her bed, enjoying the peaceful morning light in her room. The bright sun shines into the luxurious bedroom as the child rests, surrounded by flowers and elegant gold decor. Leah hums a happy tune while cleaning, the red carnation proudly pinned to her uniform as she works. A close-up shows a vibrant red flower, serving as a constant reminder of the young lady's unexpected and heartwarming gift. Resting her chin on her hands, the happy girl giggles to herself, delighted by her current life in the palace. A series of polite talk sounding knocks echo through the room, signaling someone's arrival at the bedroom door. The brown-haired aide enters with a cheerful smile, asking Leblain if she is ready to visit His Excellency's office. Leblain hops up excitedly, mindful that her progress will be reported to the influential Empress Dowager later today. Moved by her energy, the aide wipes a tear of joy, while the toddler nods enthusiastically at his praise. Walking hand in hand, the aide and the child make a rhythmic footsteps sounding as they traverse the grand carpeted hallway.
They pause as servants pass by carrying large boxes, prompting the aide to utter a confused, sudden, "Huh." He explains they are preparing gifts for the emperor's birthday, causing LeBlanc to look up with wide, curious eyes. A dark memory surfaces of LeBlanc watching Duke Valois borrow money to buy excessive gifts for the royal family. The image focuses on a decorative fountain pen, a symbol of a past mistake made out of desperate childhood naivety. In the flashback, a man cruelly insults young LeBlanc, calling her a leech for living off his household's wealth. The man roughly drags the crying child toward the attic, ordering her to stay hidden away from everyone's sight. With a harsh, sudden "pock" sounding, the man pushes. Two young boys discuss how no parent would hate a child for simply asking for school supplies like pens. The boys wonder aloud why LeBlanc was scolded, unaware of the deep discrimination she faced as a non-relative. Watching them walk away, LeBlanc realized that her lack of blood relation meant she was hated for even trivial needs. Narrative text explains that as an outsider, she had to work desperately hard just to avoid being hated by others. Returning to the present, LeBlanc knows she must do something significant to secure the Duke of Doublet's true favor. A firm hand delivers several tock-tock sounding knocks against the large wooden door of the Duke's private office. Wearing glasses, Theodore looks up from his paperwork, his expression serious and focused as he works through the documents. With a quick toto-dodo sounding of small feet, LeBlanc rushes into the room, calling out excitedly to the Duke. Theodore stares back with an intense, unreadable gaze, causing the child to let out a startled, sudden eek sounding. Trembling slightly, LeBlanc worries that she has somehow upset the Duke, as his face remains exceptionally cold and stern. The scene shifts to chaos as aides and maids run through the halls with frantic to-duck-sounding footsteps. A grand view of the palace shows the panicked search party, while Theodore stands in the foreground, looking intense. The aide reports that LeBlanc is nowhere to be found, further escalating the tension within the dark, rainy palace. Theodore's mind races, suspecting assassins, kidnappers, or the Senate of conspiring against the innocent child of fate. The maids call out to the Duke, their faces pale with terror as they point toward an unexpected discovery. Heavy, deliberate footsteps sounding approach the stone courtyard as the search party finally converges on a specific location. Under the pouring rain, they find LeBlanc standing alone near a fountain, her small figure looking drenched and somber. Leah cries out for the baby, her heart breaking as she rushes toward the silent, soaking wet child. A close-up reveals LeBlanc's hands trembling with a shaking sounding as she clutches her clothes in the cold rain. Theodore looms over the scene, his expression a mix of shock and dawning concern as he watches the girl. Shivering and barefoot in the downpour, LeBlanc looks completely broken, a stark contrast to her usual lively self. Bare feet walk across the wet stone courtyard as the rain continues to fall. Under the heavy downpour, LeBlanc offers the carnation to the silver-haired man, expressing her affection for him. Tears well in the young girl's eyes as she clutches the red flower, overcome with sudden emotion. In a stark memory, the silver-haired man coldly dismisses her, ordering her to return to her room. The child sobs in the gray-toned flashback, desperately apologizing for an unintended mistake she had made. The dark-haired maid gasps in horror, witnessing the cold interaction between the Duke and the trembling child. Closing his eyes in sorrow, the brown-haired aide remains silent as the scene of rejection unfolds. Theodore's intense blue eyes pierce through the darkness, reflecting the heavy, unspoken weight of his thoughts. Shivering in her nightgown, LeBlanc stands barefoot on the cold pavement, the red flower still in her hands. The narrative highlights how the sight of the pale, desperate child rubbing her hands was truly heart-wrenching. The scene shifts as the silver-haired man leads the small child into a luxurious, warm bathroom. LeBlanc huddles in fear, terrified that the Duke will never forgive her for the incident with the carnation. A sudden realization strikes her as she worries about the consequences of breaking the precious item. The child's imagination runs wild with terror, fearing that she has been brought here for water torture. Her panic is met with a sudden soft splash, sounding as the man places a basin of water before her. LeBlanc's eyes go wide with shock, her heart racing as she processes the man's unexpected and gentle actions. With a gentle splash sounding, Theodore washes the girl's cold feet, softly asking if she is in any pain. While the child shakes her head in denial, the Duke remains silent, focused on tending to her shivering form. Looking down shyly, the toddler admits with a stutter that her feet actually do hurt a little bit. LeBlanc feels a wave of relief as the man's touch becomes even more tender while he cleans her feet. Theodore looks down with a serious expression, warning the girl not to wander around the castle late at night. Peering up with large, watery eyes, LeBlanc nervously wonders if the Duke is still harboring any anger toward her. The man reaches out to gently dry her head, his large hand a stark contrast to her small frame. A rare, genuine smile graces Theodore's face as he reassures the girl that he is not angry with her. Stunned by his kindness, LeBlanc touches her hair in disbelief, her eyes shimmering with newfound hope and wonder. Sunlight bathes the grand towers of the doubled castle, signaling a peaceful new morning within the territory. As the sun shines through the windows, the narrative reflects on how the past days felt like walking on ice. LeBlanc peeks cautiously from behind a door, noticing that the Duke hasn't shown the slightest sign of dislike. Resting prominently in a glass vase on the Duke's desk, the red carnation stands as a cherished treasure. Dressed in a new frilly dress, the orange-haired girl wonders about the Duke's true thoughts regarding her presence. She recalls the terrifying rumors of the Duke of Doubled's past ruthlessness towards those who lacked proper manners. The maids greet LeBlanc with joyful smiles, noting that the Duke has even begun eating meals with her. Looking around curiously, the toddler asks the maids about Leah's whereabouts, her head tilted in a cute gesture. The cheerful maids explain that Leah is busy, then enthusiastically invite the girl to visit the Grand Library. Delighted by the warm atmosphere, LeBlanc giggles and realizes she truly enjoys her life at the Doubled estate. The maids squeal with excitement over the child's cuteness, suggesting they visit the wonderful library right away. Bursting with energy, the happy girl raises her hands in joy, surrounded by a magical field of four-leaf clovers. LeBlanc stands in awe before the massive, towering bookshelves of the library, the scale of knowledge looking immense. The pink-haired maid beams with excitement, presenting the young lady with various books to choose from. The maids offer a questionable selection of books about swindling and dealing with people who deserve a beating. Proudly displaying a book on money lending, the pink-haired maid insists that this is the path to true success. A comical, sudden scuffle sounding ensues as the maids argue over which life lessons are most important for the child. LeBlanc decides to maintain her active illiteracy, planning to pick a book based solely on its pretty cover. Her attention is caught by a mysterious, plain volume on the shelf that surprisingly lacks any visible title. The book glows with an otherworldly light, its plain cover hiding a secret that feels significant to the girl. Opening the book, LeBlanc reads of founding Emperor Fried I's victory over the evil servant Ivan. A historical illustration depicts a hooded figure holding a dark sword, representing the servant of the evil god.
The records explain that contact with a divine relic is the essential key to awakening dormant magical power.
Another illustration shows that a medium is required to exercise the power once it has been successfully manifested. LeBlaine stares intensely at the ancient text, her mind racing as she processes this dangerous and hidden knowledge. The mysterious book glows with a sinister light, filling LeBlaine with a sudden sense of impending doom. Clinging to the volume, the girl wonders why she found a record concerning an ancient evil deity. The text describes how Nereid, the Empire's protector, successfully sealed away the calamitous evil god for humanity's safety. Over centuries, the divine seal weakened, allowing a powerful magical artifact to manifest and eventually be discovered. A holy ritual is depicted, showing a woman in white summoning a glowing cross amidst a crowd of worshippers. A traumatic memory of the sacrifice ritual haunts LeBlaine, making her wish for a swift end to her agony. Peering through the library shelves, the pink-haired maid urgently searches for the toddler she calls her baby. Acting like a frightened child, LeBlaine claims she was hiding because she was scared of the library's lion statue. The group of maids squeal in delight, their hearts melting at the toddler's adorable and innocent display of fear. The dark-haired maid Leah approaches with a warm smile, her presence bringing a calm atmosphere to the bustling library. Overjoyed by the affection from the household staff, LeBlaine beams with a bright, genuine smile of pure happiness. When the maids offer to show her more of the estate, the girl enthusiastically agrees with a playful cheer. Within the grand throne room, Duke Theodore sits regally while an aide stands at attention near the carpeted stairs. The focal point is the founding emperor's magnificent tapestry, adorned with ancient script and a golden key symbol. Theodore reflects on the blood and conflict required to obtain the legendary tapestry during his harsh military campaigns. Despite the imperial palace's deep envy, they were never able to wrestle the precious artifact from the Doubled family. Seated beneath the tapestry, Theodore embodies the military might that has made his territory a force to be feared. LeBlanc recalls how other lesser nobles began imitating the Duke by decorating their own homes with inferior tapestries. The narrative shows various noblemen proudly displaying their decorative banners, attempting to mimic the prestigious Doubled style. A sudden, heavy presence approaches the Duke's throne, causing LeBlaine to sweat nervously as she senses a visitor. With rhythmic sounding, a new guest enters the hall and offers a formal greeting to Duke Doubled. The visitor is identified as Merchant Turba, a man whose face instantly triggers a dark realization within LeBlaine. The child stares in wide-eyed shock, her mind racing as she questions why this specific man has appeared here. Merchant Turba bows low with a polite smile, presenting himself as a humble trader seeking an audience. He claims to possess rare items that could rival the Duke's current treasures, sparking interest among the castle aides. A memory reveals Turba is actually a notorious conman who once swindled the royal family with forgeries. Standing near Leah, LeBlaine glares suspiciously at the merchant, fearing he intends to pull a scam on the doublets. Turba opens a leather case to reveal a glowing stone tablet inscribed with mysterious, ancient characters. He describes the artifact as a sacred stone tablet that supposedly received a divine oracle in ancient times. The palace aides discuss the item's immense value, believing it to be a holy relic of the main god. The brown-haired aide suggests the tablet would be an ideal gift for the emperor's upcoming royal birthday celebration. Theodore remains skeptical, questioning the tablet's authenticity, while Turba insists its history and power have been verified. The merchant continues his persuasive pitch, gesturing with his hands to emphasize the supposed rarity of his findings. Boasting about his firm's reputation, Turba claims he personally discovered the relic upon a dangerous ancient plateau.
He dramatically recounts a harrowing tale of surviving a monster horde just to secure the artifact for the Duke. Unmoved by the theatrical story, Theodore leans forward and coldly asks the merchant for the item's final price.
Turba smiles greedily as he names his astronomical price, a staggering 100 million for the stone tablet. The aides gasp at the exorbitant cost, while LeBlanc peeks around them, her suspicion of the fraud intensifying. Breaking the tension, LeBlanc pipes up with a childish request, claiming she wants to see the glowing rock herself. While the aides remain cautious, Merchant Turba looks down at the girl with a confident and calculating expression. The girl throws her arms up in a fake display of toddler joy, successfully maintaining her innocent facade. Turba greets her as the child of fate, his voice dripping with false respect as he tries to impress her. He extends an inviting hand, encouraging the young girl to approach the open case and examine the artifact. With a quick Toto-Dodo sounding of small feet, LeBlanc rushes forward despite the aide's worried warnings about its fragility. Crouching before the case, the girl smiles brightly as Theodore orders the staff to let her satisfy her curiosity. Turba mockingly suggests that the child of fate might even be able to read the ancient text for them. While the aide scoffs at the idea of a toddler reading a dead language, Turba offers a fake translation. Close-up on the girl reveals her speaking the true, darker meaning of the script. It is actually a tombstone. The room falls into a stunned silence as the aides and the Duke stare in absolute, wide-eyed disbelief. Caught in his lie, Merchant Turba breaks into a cold sweat, his face twisting in panic at her revelation. LeBlanc points an accusing finger at the artifact, inwardly calling Turba a fraud, while maintaining her innocent toddler smile. Staring at the stone tablet, the girl reflects on her luck for having checked the merchant's deceptive claims. The brown-haired aide is utterly dumbfounded, questioning how a small child could possibly decipher the complex ancient script. Narrative text highlights that even the highest priests of the temple struggle to decode more than a few characters. A mystical woman in white stands amidst glowing light, symbolizing the rare and divine nature of ancient translation. The air fills with magic as the narrative announces the arrival of a rare, living translation for the ancient tongue. Sprawling, illegible characters demonstrate just how far the ancient script has drifted from the Empire's modern language. LeBlanc recalls that by the time of her previous death, only 3 people had mastered this forgotten language. Visualizing the future masters, she remembers the Crown Prince and the Duke's eldest son, Johann, who eventually learned it. A regal figure in a sapphire coat stands amidst blue roses, embodying the power and mystery of the future. An image of LeBlanc's older self looms behind her current form, both possessing the secret knowledge of the ancients. The orange-haired girl pouts at the merchant's ridiculous lie regarding the tablet's supposed excavation site on the plateau. A map reveals that Kalesis is miles away from the plateau, exposing Turba's entire origin story as a fabrication. The castle aides erupt in a chorus of shock, unable to fathom a toddler reading a dead language. The purple-haired aide demands clarification, stunned by the claim that a holy relic is actually just a common gravestone. With a simple and confident nod, LeBlanc confirms her statement, while Turba's confidence visibly begins to shatter. Turning to the Duke, the brown-haired aide desperately seeks confirmation of the impossible revelation the child just made. Surrounded by a floral aura, the girl steels her resolve, determined to play her part and deceive the court. While the aide grips her shoulders in disbelief, LeBlanc reveals she has already prepared a clever answer for his questions. Melting at the sight of her cuteness,
The aides laugh and decide that such a precious child would never lie.
A dark smirk crosses LeBlain's face as she recalls how the previous child of fate, Mina, used similar tactics. Memories of Mina show the older girl using her supposed divine gifts to manipulate the people's faith and devotion. Worshippers bow before Mina, praising her God-given power, while the narrative contrasts her past influence with LeBlain's current path. Sparking with a playful energy, LeBlain embraces her current role as the child of fate to outmaneuver her enemies. Terrified by the threat to his scam, Merchant Turba shouts in a panic, desperate to silence the girl's accusations. The merchant insists the temple will verify his goods, mockingly asking how LeBlain stares him down with a cold gaze, fully aware that his so-called proof is just another clever forgery. The aides are plunged into a tense silence as they weigh the merchant's desperation. Turba attempts a final defense, reminding everyone that only the founding emperor was ever capable of writing this script. Under intense scrutiny, LeBlain reflects on how her situation differs from Mina's, knowing she must overcome deep-seated suspicion. A mischievous close-up of the girl's smile signals that she is about to deliver a finishing blow to the scam. Looking up at the grand doubled banner, the toddler prepares to translate the true, secret name of the founding emperor. LeBlain points toward the royal tapestry with a triumphant shout, the air around her shimmering with lace-patterned magic. Duke Theodore is struck silent by the child's words, realizing she has spoken a secret that has been buried for centuries.
The aides are horrified as the girl reveals the emperor's true middle name, a fact that changes everything they knew.
A dark, hooded figure stands against a backdrop of blood-red stained glass, representing the forbidden and cursed Simon tribe. Historical notes explain that the Simon tribe were considered creations of an evil god, making their mention a strictly forbidden taboo. Shadows and red roses fill the frame as the narrative reflects on the weight of the emperor's secret bloodline. A visual of a golden-haired king crowned with thorns illustrates the heavy burden of the imperial family's hidden history. In a desperate attempt to protect their prestige, the imperial family is shown burning documents to erase their cursed origins. LeBlain beams at the terrified merchant, knowing her knowledge of high-level noble secrets is her most powerful weapon. Standing tall and confident, she declares that her ability to read the ancient script is now undeniable to everyone present. The purple-haired aide is left speechless, forced to accept the miraculous truth about the girl's extraordinary capabilities. In a moment of absolute awe, the court finally acknowledges LeBlain as a true and powerful child of fate. While one aide marvels at her genius, another turns his fury toward Turba for his blatant attempt to scam the household. Turba's face turns ashen and sweat-streaked as he realizes his fake religious piety will no longer save him. Panic consumes the merchant as he realizes he has been completely outsmarted by a mere toddler in a frilly dress. Theodore leans in with a cold, predatory smile, mocking the merchant for his audacity to challenge the girl's proof. Merchant Turba clutches his chest in absolute terror, his world collapsing as he faces the Duke's terrifying and silent judgment. LeBlain observes Merchant Turba trembling under the Duke's cold gaze, acknowledging the terrifying pressure he exerts. Clutching his throne, Duke Theodore muses on his own leniency while glaring at the gnat before him. With a look of absolute disdain, the silver-haired Duke orders Knox to throw the merchant into the dungeon. His footsteps echoing with a thudding rhythm, Theodore descends the stairs with an aura of cold, lethal authority. Theodore strides forward, coldly suggesting they cut open the merchant to find the faith he so loudly proclaims.
The brown-haired aide, Knox, bows his head in silent, stern acceptance of his master's ruthless command. Terrified, Merchant Turba reaches out with a desperate cry, pleading for a moment to explain his actions. The merchant collapses on the floor, his desperate cries for mercy echoing as the Duke turns his back. Night falls over the quiet palace as Theodore and Knox discuss the underlying truth behind the merchant's desperation. Narrative text reveals Turba was driven by a need for funds to acquire a holy relic for the Pope. Peeking over the table, LeBlanc wonders what legendary artifact could possibly motivate such a high-stakes, dangerous scam. Knox presents a parchment depicting a mystical diagram, identifying the item Turba was seeking to obtain. A vision of Mina appears, holding the radiant étoile, the holy relic that granted her immense divine power. Examining the ancient scroll, LeBlanc notes that the depicted relic possesses a different color than Mina's famous étoile. Shocked, the orange-haired girl realizes this artifact is not the one currently guarded within the temple's holy vaults. Theodore listens as Knox explains that the discovery of a second étoile explains the merchant's reckless, fanatical madness. Pointing to the ancient drawing, Knox questions where the elusive second relic is currently being hidden. The brown-haired aide falls into a pensive silence, weighing the political implications of finding such a powerful object. Consulting a map, Knox reveals the relic lies just outside imperial waters, within the territory of another continent. Theodore contemplates the situation as Knox notes that the church cannot move without risking an all-out international war. LeBlanc reflects on Turba's scheme to trade the étoile to a foreign king, realizing why he needed money. Theodore rubs his brow in frustration, while Knox asks if he intends to negotiate with the foreign ruler. Dismissing diplomacy as a nuisance, the Duke stands up, his movements accompanied by a sudden, sharp clicking sound. Surrounded by blooming flowers, the Duke offers a chilling smile, casually declaring that they can simply go to war. Stunned but loyal, Knox accepts the declaration, promising to immediately begin the necessary preparations for the coming conflict. Running through the halls, LeBlanc realizes that if the church moves against her, the Empress Dowager will assist them. Haunted by memories, she fears the Duke won't defend her against the imperial family while he's away on inspection. Staring into a dark, thorny abyss, LeBlanc vows to escape while the church is busy transporting her to the capital. LeBlanc enters the storage room, spotting a maid working diligently amidst crates and barrels. The blue-haired maid greets her with a warm smile, and LeBlanc cutely requests a drink of fresh water. Standing amidst a floral aura, LeBlanc maintains her innocent toddler facade to disarm the staff of the doubled household. Charmed by her cuteness, the maids happily assist her as water flows into her container with a splashing sound. LeBlanc points toward a cute elephant-shaped backpack, insisting that she needs to take it with her as well. The maid cheerfully agrees to help, while LeBlanc inwardly celebrates having successfully secured a vital supply of water. Thinking of her journey ahead, the girl recalls the various snacks she has already hidden away for her escape. Hurrying down the stairs, LeBlanc focuses on her next objective, determined to gather all the essentials for her flight. She enters a room overflowing with pastries, noting that sweets are absolutely essential for her energy and stamina. Tempted by a golden candy, she decides that her stomach won't miss just 2 small pieces of sugar. With a determined look, LeBlanc stuffs her elephant bag full of colorful treats, while her backpack sighs in protest. Mentally ticking off her list, the girl reminds herself that a map, clothes, and shoes are still needed. Sneaking behind a heavy curtain,
LeBlaine prepares to pack the most important item for her new life of freedom. She uncovers a heavy sack overflowing with gold coins, celebrating the discovery of her hidden treasure.
LeBlaine gleefully rubs her face against her allowance, grateful for the gold she managed to secure from the vassals. Caught in the act, LeBlaine startles as Leah, the black-haired maid, approaches and asks what she is doing.
Leah suspiciously questions her plans, but LeBlaine quickly tries to hide her panic behind a mask of toddler innocence.
Leah pulls the girl into a tender embrace, wishing for her to grow up surrounded by a parent's genuine love.
With a soft patting motion, the maid comforts the child, unaware of the complex plan LeBlaine is currently hatching.
Close-up on the girl's eye reveals a flicker of sadness as she reflects on her belief that no one truly likes her.
Crying out in a stylized display of frustration, LeBlaine declares she'd rather suffer than return to her previous life. Looking up at Leah's kind expression, the girl realizes she cannot involve the ordinary employee in her dangerous escape.
Leah prepares snacks for their departure, while LeBlaine offers a soft, reluctant mumble in response.
Amidst a backdrop of delicate flowers and a chirping bird, the narrator begins a new, whimsical fairy tale.
The pink-haired, brown-haired, and blonde-haired maids try to cheer the girl up with playful hand puppets.
Grief overcomes the staff as the pink-haired and blonde-haired maids weep at the thought of the baby leaving. The three maids break into a chorus of loud, synchronized wailing, unable to contain their overwhelming sorrow.
While the maids embrace in their shared misery, LeBlaine notices the pink-haired one is holding a glowing relic.
LeBlaine reminisces about the delicious snacks and the joyful horsey rides she enjoyed with her new, doting family.
Tears well up in the toddler's eyes as she reflects on how this household felt like true heaven.
Noticing her tears, the three maids fly into a protective rage, demanding to know who upset their precious baby.
Looking at Leah's sad face, LeBlaine realizes with a heavy heart that leaving means never seeing her again. The girl throws a dramatic tantrum at the tea table, shouting for the Duke despite her complicated feelings. No matter how much she cries, the reality of her departure remains unchanged as Leah clutches the blue relic. A decorative lace frame signals a grim turning point as the day for the priest's arrival finally dawns. Standing in the grand hall, the brown-haired aide prepares to hand LeBlaine over, while the maids watch mournfully. The aide questions the sudden arrival, but the teal-haired priest dismissively cites the Pope's absolute command. Determined to protect her, the pink and blonde-haired maids stuff a trunk with supplies and a warm blanket.
Leah's eyes widen in alarm as the teal-haired priest looms behind her, his presence feeling cold and intrusive. LeBlaine recoils in fear while the priest feigns pity, falsely claiming she must have suffered alone in this house.
The priest's smile turns sinister as he tells her not to worry, his face half hidden by dark, looming shadows. Terror strikes LeBlaine when the priest reveals her new, loving father will be the notorious and cruel Duke Valois. The girl's blood runs cold as she recalls the brutal beatings she endured under Valois in her past life. Shadowy figures strike a deal, while a vision of the young girl in heavy chains illustrates her grim past. Trembling with deep-seated trauma, LeBlaine stares at her own shaking legs, terrified of returning to that living nightmare. Envisioning herself bound by black chains, the girl cries out in a panic, desperate to stay where she is. The priest roughly seizes her arm, causing a sharp cry of pain that horrifies Leah and the aide. Losing his patience, the priest barks at the child to move, warning that God will surely curse her.
The priest screams about religious duty, while LeBlaine is overwhelmed by the smell of alcohol and traumatic memories. Paralyzed by a sudden panic attack, the girl's breath hitches as the weight of her trauma resurfaces. Tears stream down LeBlaine's face as she trembles in absolute terror, wondering why her nightmare is repeating itself. The priest looms over the gasping child until a sudden, brilliant flare of blue energy erupts between them. A commanding voice orders the priest to let go, and Theodore's hand reaches out to comfort his daughter. Stunned into silence, the priest and the aide look on as a terrifying, dark aura manifests behind them. Duke Theodore appears like a vengeful god, his blue eyes glowing with lethal intent toward the cowering priest. The priest stammers about the prior agreement with Valois, but Theodore's cold, piercing gaze silences his weak protests. A dark splatter of blood-red ink punctuates the Duke's chilling declaration that the discussion is now reopened. Theodore's knights draw their gleaming swords in unison, forcing the terrified priest to scream that this is ridiculous. Theodore's expression remains stone-cold and immovable as his men surround the intruders with naked steel. An oppressive, dark void fills the air as the Duke icily reminds the priest he never gave permission to speak. Clutching the Duke's hand, a sobbing LeBlaine looks up at him with a mixture of shock and profound relief. Theodore's blue eye narrows with a sharp, protective focus as he looks down at the child he has claimed. Thorns and dark energy coil around the Duke's hand as he exerts a bone-crushing grip on the priest's arm. The priest screams in agony as Theodore declares that the child is now officially under the Doubled House's protection. A sharp, cracking sound echoes through the hall as the Duke's overwhelming strength forces the priest to his knees. With a protective gesture, Theodore pulls the girl close, shielding her from the priest's sight. Theodore issues a final, arrogant challenge, telling the church to bring an entire night order next time. LeBlaine sniffs and wipes her eyes, staring at her father in awe as he stands as her ultimate shield. Theodore chides her for scrunching her face, while LeBlaine continues to wail in a display of pure emotional release. Amidst soft pink blossoms, a final thought suggests the girl needs to wash up to be presentable again. The toddler leans her cheek into Theodore's large hand with a contented sigh, finally feeling safe and loved. Duke Theodore holds LeBlaine protectively while the teal-haired priest trembles in agony from his bone-crushing grip. Walking away with the child, the Duke's brown-haired aide tells the stunned church officials to leave immediately. The teal-haired priest stares in utter disbelief, his face pale as he realizes the negotiation is over. A sudden, comical whack sounds as a giant boot sends the meddling priest flying toward his waiting carriage. As the sun sets over the grand doubled mansion, the atmosphere shifts from confrontation to a quiet evening. A mustachioed man with a pink cheek patch invites the baby over, but LeBlaine clings tighter to Theodore. While she trembles against him, LeBlaine realizes that only against the Duke's chest does she feel truly safe. Leah and the mustachioed man explain that the baby is frightened and plead for a few hours together. Theodore dismissively gives them permission to leave, leaving the black-haired maid and the mustachioed man paralyzed with shock. Looking up with massive, tearful eyes, LeBlaine offers a tiny apology for being such a bother to the Duke. Surrounded by a floral aura, Theodore misinterprets her fear, arrogantly assuming the child simply likes him far too much. A confused silence falls over the pair as flowers and sparkles decorate the Duke's unexpectedly gentle, yet awkward expression. Stuttering their thanks, Leah and the mustachioed man quickly scurry out of the room as the door begins to creak. The heavy door is finally shut with a sharp, echoing click, sealing the two of them inside the quiet room. LeBlaine stays in wide-eyed wonder, her mind reeling at the fact that the Duke actually called her his daughter. Theodore's face is half-shrouded in shadow as he repeats his lethal warning for everyone to stay away from her. Trembling and clutching his lapels, the girl asks in a small, shaky voice if she can stay here forever. She promises to eat very little and behave perfectly, desperate to stay in the first place that felt like home.
A close-up of LeBlaine's shimmering blue eye captures the intense hope and vulnerability of her desperate plea.
Soft yellow flowers bloom as Theodore smiles down at her, finally acknowledging her with a truly kind and warm expression. A warm fire begins to crackle in the hearth, casting a cozy glow over the Duke's expressionless but softening face. A rhythmic pat-pat sounds as Theodore's large hand gently comforts the small girl resting against his shoulder. Surrounded by lavender blossoms, LeBlaine peacefully falls asleep in the Duke's arms, while a soft rustle accompanies his movements. Holding a yellow sketchbook, LeBlaine cutely asks Leah to write something down for her, and the maid happily agrees. Fireworks and disco balls erupt as LeBlaine and the maids perform a dance of joy to celebrate her adoption. LeBlaine reflects on the Doubled family's impressive power, noting how easily they crushed the priest's arm without any consequences. Laughing at the corrupt reality, the girl realizes the emperor was likely bribed into helping them with pure capital. Floating amongst bright yellow flowers, LeBlaine decides her plan is to grow up here for at least 5 years. She figures that by age 10, her adult mind will be easier to manage, and she can finally leave. While LeBlaine dreams of saving travel money, the maids gossip about the 2 young masters arriving at the castle. Spotting a shiny button, LeBlaine's eyes turn into large blue orbs as a sudden, sharp snap grabs her attention. The blonde-haired maid warns the toddler to be careful, fearing she might accidentally drop the precious, shiny object. Bathed in a flowery aura, LeBlaine begs for the button, while the smitten maids offer her their very hearts. The blonde maid refuses to give it up, worried the baby might swallow it, leaving LeBlaine to mourn her travel fund. A frantic tick-tick sounds as the maids work with terrifying intensity, their eyes glowing with a labor of love. With master-level focus, the blonde-haired maid meticulously sews a series of buttons together for their precious little lady. Proudly presenting her work, the maid shows off a custom button necklace that leaves both Leah and LeBlaine ecstatic. The pink-haired maid spots Lord Terramore and the Senate arriving outside, wondering what they intend to nitpick this time. Peeking over the windowsill, LeBlaine's curiosity is piqued as she hears the name Terramore mentioned by the staff. A close-up reveals the stern and cold features of Lord Terramore, his gaze sharp and full of ancient authority. A sudden, sharp gasp escapes LeBlaine as she looks at the old man, her blue eyes widening in immediate recognition. With a sudden swish, Leah and the other maid pull the red curtains shut to hide LeBlaine from the Senate. Sensing the tension, Leah asks the baby if she wants to go eat somewhere far away from the visitors. A sepia-toned vision shows the Duke eating a lonely, quick meal in his office, always buried in his work. LeBlanc wonders why he always eats alone and decides she will find out for herself if she goes there. Haunted by the old man's face, the girl tries to remember where she saw Lord Terramore in her past. Lush yellow and purple flowers frame the entrance as the heavy doors of the dining hall slowly creak. The scene opens to a grand dinner where Theodore sits with 2 silver-haired boys, his sons, and the young masters.
Stepping into the room with a bright and cheerful smile, LeBlanc greets her new family with a loud hello.
As the girl stares at the 3 silver-haired doubleds, her eye reflects a sudden, shocking realization about the brothers.
Theodore sits at the dinner hall table, his sharp blue eyes fixed on the entrance as his daughter arrives. LeBlanc stands before her new brothers, silver-haired boys who stare back at her with vastly different, intense expressions. The silver-haired Duke acknowledges her presence with a short, calm call of her name.
Startled by the formal setting, a small, quick gasp escapes LeBlanc as she takes in the scene.
Determined to be close to him, the toddler scurries toward Theodore while a series of quick, light footsteps sounds.
LeBlanc looks up with shimmering blue eyes, her expression a mix of innocence and deep-seated caution.
Large, steady hands reach down and lift the small girl into the safety of the Duke's lap. Theodore introduces Henri, his polite second son, and Ishak, the younger, far more aggressive-looking third son.
LeBlanc is struck by the realization that she is now surrounded by 3 miniature versions of the terrifying Duke.
A sudden, heavy thump sounds in her chest as the weight of her new family's presence sinks in. With a firm tone, the Duke officially presents LeBlanc to his sons as the new member of their household. Henri offers a pleasant greeting, but a sudden, blunt bump sounds as Ishak irritably nudges his brother aside. Looking distinctly unimpressed, the silver-haired Ishak gives his name with a sharp, piercing glare toward the toddler. Settled on Theodore's lap, LeBlanc sighs inwardly, feeling a pang of jealousy over how quickly the boys have grown. She recalls that Henri will become a financial genius, though others will mockingly call him a law-dodging fox. Resting her chin on her hand, the toddler enters a deep, tactical thought about her 2 formidable brothers. She remembers Ishak as a future legendary knight and a violent thug who was once loathed by Duke Valois.
Her blood runs cold as she remembers these boys as Mina's guardians who once sought her own execution.
Traumatic memories resurface of a past life where she hid in terror while the doubled boys hunted her down.
Shadows of the past loom as she recalls how her heart felt like it was shrinking under their gaze. Shaking her head vigorously, the girl tries to clear the terrifying images and focus on the present. She clenches her tiny fists, resolving to stay on their good side to avoid the tragedies of her past. Bathed in a flowery aura, LeBlanc waves and puts on her most harmless, adorable smile to win them over.
While Henri maintains a practiced, polite smile, Ishak's cold blue eyes remain fixed on her with intense suspicion. A sudden, heavy thump sounds as Ishak's glowing gaze pins her down, his expression hardening with unspoken hostility.
Henry's calm expression shifts as a sharp, echoing chime sounds, revealing a chillingly cold intelligence behind his teal eyes.
Comparing the 2, LeBlanc realizes that while Ishak is aggressive, Henri is the one who feels truly dangerous. Looming over her with a menacing aura, Ishak barks a demand to know if she even knows how to eat.
Bewildered by the strange question, LeBlanc offers a small, shaky confirmation while floating among confused question marks.
A loud, startled yell sounds as Ishak screams about her being a rabbit, shocking the more composed Henri. While she finds Ishak's behavior idiotic, LeBlanc's attention shifts to Henri, who is focused on writing complex documents. Curiosity getting the better of her, the toddler peeks over the desk as a quick, rhythmic scratching sounds. LeBlanc's eyes widen in shock as she spots the advanced financial formulas and economic theories scrawled on the parchment. Noticing her gaze, Henri asks if she has a question, while she shyly admits she was just curious.
Ishak accuses his brother of siphoning money, but Henri calmly explains the strategic purpose of a slush fund. Aghast, Leblanc wonders how children so young can discuss such corrupt and complex topics with total nonchalance. Ishak proudly boasts about his plan to buy up iron, eager to show off his superior knowledge to her. While Ishak explains wartime economics, Henri dismisses his brother's logic as a simplistic merchant's way of thinking. Henri explains the superiority of gold over currency during war, leaving the grumpy Ishak looking completely outclassed. Floating in a surreal, starry void, Leblanc realizes she has entered a family of terrifyingly brilliant prodigies. Suddenly, a sharp, loud shout sounds as Ishak points a finger directly at the startled toddler. Leblanc lets out a quick, surprised gasp as the aggressive boy demands her full attention. Ishak issues a lethal warning, telling her he will kill her if she ever dares to look down on him. Panicked, the girl waves her arms and quickly reassures him that she respects his knowledge of the iron trade. Instantly appeased by her praise, Ishak's expression shifts to a smug, satisfied grin as he looks at her. Bathed in a swirling blue energy, Ishak arrogantly declares his own strength, warning her not to get too cocky. Henri looks at his bragging brother with pure disdain, while Leblanc stares blankly at the chaotic family dynamic. Henri smiles darkly, chillingly reminding her that the doubled family values results far more than blood ties. The girl looks up with wide eyes, realizing that without doubled blood, she is in a precarious position. With a terrifyingly pleasant smile, Henri issues a final, veiled threat about shortening her lifespan through greed. Leblanc realizes she must answer promptly, believing that well-behaved children are the ones who receive love. With a radiant smile and a flowery aura, the toddler cheerfully agrees to the boy's demands. Henri stares down at her in complete shock, his teal eyes wide with disbelief at her innocent reaction. A sudden, cold breeze sweeps through the room as Henri and Leblanc realize just how dangerous the moment was. Ishak breaks the tension with a sudden, loud burst of laughter as he finds the situation unexpectedly amusing. Henri watches her suspiciously, his inner thoughts churning as he questions the toddler's true nature and intentions. Surrounded by blooming roses, Leblanc walks away happily, while Henri remains deeply unsettled by her presence. Henri's teal eyes glow with a sharp, vertical slit as he wonders if she is truly innocent or calculating. Recalling his brilliant older brother, Henri refuses to believe she is harmless simply because of her young age. The silver-haired boy reflects on his family's intellect, noting that even his idiot brother possesses a certain cleverness. Henri imagines a dark version of Leblanc playing a strategic game, convinced she is far more cunning than she appears. He remains lost in thought, his expression hardening as he considers the hidden depth behind her childish facade. Henri recalls an official's frantic warning about the child of fate and how masterfully she manipulates those around her. A close-up shows a man screaming about her occupying the Duke's lap, fueled by static and mounting frustration. A series of heavy thud sounds as Ishak punches a door while Henri resolves to keep a close eye. Henri catches Ishak acting out and bluntly asks what he is doing, startling his aggressive brother. Ishak crossly denies that she is cute, while Henri observes that everyone has already fallen for her charms. Looking away with a faint blush, Henri inwardly admits the toddler has already managed to charm the entire household. A close-up reveals Leblanc's shimmering blue eye and rosy cheek against a background of soft white flowers. Despite his skepticism, Henri finds her plump cheeks tempting to touch, even as he tries to maintain his distance. Floating among roses,
Ishak's voice echoes his surprise that the toddler actually understood his talk about the iron trade.
Henri remains steadfast, his glowing eye reflecting a firm resolve not to be swayed by her like the others. A loud boom sounds as Henri stands over Leblanc in the grand hall, the atmosphere thick with tension. Leblanc looks up at him with concern, wondering why his behavior toward her is so cold and forbidding.
Sensing the heavy silence, the toddler decides she must do something to break the awkward tension between them. Leblanc offers a small brown bag to Henri, who looks down in utter bewilderment at her sudden gesture. Henri issues a cold warning for her not to seek a status she doesn't deserve, his gaze full of authority. A quick tap sounds as Ishak approaches, prompting Henri to wonder what his impulsive brother is up to now. Henri is shocked to see Leblanc offering the bag to Ishak, realizing his brother might be easily manipulated. A sudden splash of red appears as Henri reflects that using a weapon signifies immediate defeat for their family. A sharp pat sounds as Leblanc reaches for a glowing object, determined to prove she can be truly terrifying. A loud ta-da sounds as Ishak gleefully holds up a loaf of bread, while Henri looks on in disbelief. Leblanc is secretly outraged that the idiot is eating the bread all alone without offering to share any. She worries that her growing hunger will overwhelm her adult mind and cause her to attack the young master. A series of heavy thud sounds as she imagines being kicked out of the castle for assaulting Ishak. Shaking her head vigorously, the girl resolves to stay disciplined and not let her desire for bread win. Ishak smiles with a smug, cat-like grin, clearly enjoying his meal while the toddler watches him intently. A sudden rustle sounds as Ishak laughs and tells her she is being a good child for once. A soft sob sounds as Leblanc looks at the bread with teary eyes, her resolve beginning to crumble. A quick nudge sounds as Ishak holds the loaf toward her, surprisingly asking if she actually wants some. With a huff, Ishak thrusts the bread at her, claiming he is only giving it to her because he is bored. A loud chomp sounds as Leblanc bites into the bread, her eyes sparkling with pure, sugary delight. Dancing with joy, the girl celebrates the delicious taste of sugar, while hearts and flowers fill the air. Ishak sits beside her, watching her eat with a curious expression, noting how much she seems to enjoy it. A rhythmic chew-chew sounds as Ishak eats his own piece, making excuses for why he shared with her. A series of quick click-clack footsteps sound on the red carpet as someone approaches the two children. A sudden gasp sounds as Leah, the maid, discovers the young master and Leblanc eating together in the hall. Leah chides the children, reminding them they were supposed to wait for the special snacks she had prepared. A loud zap sounds as Leblanc instantly points at Ishak, cleverly passing the blame for the illicit snacking. A sharp swish sounds as Ishak turns bright red, stuttering as he admits he was the one who gave it to her. Leah forgives the toddler's secret snacking because she shared, much to Leblanc's internal relief as she avoids trouble. Surrounded by floral patterns, Leah's voice carries the news that it is time for the young master's afternoon nap. Radiant with a warm smile, the maid holds Leblanc amidst a shower of flower petals and bright morning light. Peeking out with sparkling blue eyes, the toddler projects an air of pure innocence as she watches her surroundings. A sudden, warm rush sounds as Henri turns beet red, his teal eyes widening in a moment of flustered shock. Turning away with a stubborn blush, Henri insists to himself that the girl isn't cute, as flowers bloom nearby. Tucking the girl in, Leah mentions the harmonious dinner, unaware of the tension that actually occurred between the children. The maid smiles blissfully, convinced that the young masters must have been charmed by the toddler's undeniable adorableness.
A soft, cold wish sounds as the dejected LeBlanc realizes she cannot reveal the brothers' true, frightening natures.
Determined to survive until her eventual defection, the small girl realizes she must actively court the brothers' favor. A firm, quick grip sounds as LeBlanc balls her fists, steeling her resolve to become an indispensable family member.
Visualizing the scholarly Henri and the warrior Ishak, the girl decides that constant exposure will eventually melt their hearts.
Framed by roses and a shattered glass effect, the toddler stands tall with a fierce determination to change her fate.